statement, unbeknownst to me, to be released simultaneously with my testimony, in which he said that if I refuse to answer questions, it will be assumed that I am a communist and I will be fired. And the reporter from the Tennessean who had been to see him told him it was expected that I would refuse on Fifth Amendment grounds. Why? He said that I don't know. They hadn't spoken to me. So then a fuss started. There was a good deal of support. There were also a good many people who ran the other way, because those were very tough times. And I was called before the Fisk Board of Trustees, which was meeting in New York on October 28th, 1954. I went there. I had a written statement, which I made to it, and there was and I understand that initially the board voted against taking any action. But then one of the local white trustees, Dan May by name, got up and said that if I were not fired, he would resign from the board and spread his resignation in the press. Of course, that would affect the financial support of the university. It would affect its local public relations and so on. So he gave them a time limit, and they replaced that decision not to fire me by referring it to the executive committee of the board, which in due course voted to fire me 10-1, 10 whites against the 1 black. A good many of my mathematical colleagues, when they saw the meetings, said, how could you be fired from Black University after your record on civil rights? So I would say to them, you don't know what a black institution is. It isn't one which is controlled by blacks. It's one which is attended by blacks. They have to beg for money from the same sources as other institutions do. Their boards of trustees are composed of moneyed people, chiefly white. And in the state-run institutions of the South, black institutions of the South, some of the boards of trustees are 100% white and not white sympathetic to the aspirations of the black community. So, and that was more or less how the vote split on the Fisk Board of Trustees. And I have some very treasured memories from some of them. The president of the local black bank, who was also head of the Sunday School Publishing Board, a very rich man, and very conservative. He owned a newspaper which was a vanity sheet, more or less. And the newspaper used to run articles supporting the Un-American Committee. I go into the bank, which is where I kept my account. Henry Allen Boyd, age 79 at the time, was sitting there and calls me over and says to me, I want you to know that I'm not too old to learn something new or too stiff-necked to admit when I've been a fool. And he picked up the phone, he was given to dramatic gestures, and called the editor of the paper he owned and said, our policy is different now. You are to give Dr. Lorch 100% support. And the paper did after that. And at the final vote dismissing me, Percy Julian, the famous chemist, the originator of cortisone, a very talented man, and also through his ownership of various chemical patents, a very rich man, was so affected by this that he came to our house and cried. He said the only satisfaction he had was that every free Negro, was the way he put it, voted right. He pointed out to me that every black member of the board who was not beholden to whites, that is, who wasn't employed in a white firm, or directly on the thumb, every such person who voted against dismissing me, regardless of their views on other topics.
Mm-hmm.
That the handful of blacks who went along with the white majority were people who were seeking something from them. It was a very acute observation. And we became very good friends. And Dr. Ziegler, a black dentist from Chicago, was on the board also. So, but tremendous pressure was put on the students not to support me. The student newspaper originally had some articles supporting me. The president of the university, its first black president, called in the editorial board and told them that if they wanted to graduate, they were not going to mess in this case anymore. A couple of students, graduate students who were active in our support, had their scholarships canceled offhand, and they came to live as Kelso and Herndon. Do you remember them, Alice?
Oh, yeah.
Calvin Herndon died not long ago. They stayed with us, so at least they weren't out on the street, and their departments refused to dismiss them. So they were able to finish their work, and Herndon became a professor eventually in, what was it? I've forgotten the name of the college now. It was a fairly well-known college which enrolled chiefly white students. And Kelso became a professor at the University of Houston. I don't think he's still there. I don't know where he is. But somehow their lives worked out despite the cruel effort to crush them at that time. But the stakes were high. And this was what was going on. So anyway, I got fired. Back to the job hunt. Again, many Canadian offers, including again from the University of Saskatchewan, on which Alice had become an expert. And then at the last minute, I was offered a job at Philander Smith College in Little Rock, Arkansas, black college, run by the Methodist Church. There were several fortunate breaks there which led to that. The Methodist Board of Education had its headquarters in Nashville, and I knew the people there. And they had been shocked that Fisk would fire me. It wasn't something remote. They knew me personally, and they followed the same issues. There had been other issues. I was chair of a committee which defended a white teenager against phony charges of rape, for example. We were successful in a certain sense in that. But, and some of the Methodist people were on the committee too. So there was, so I had that much backing. And I had come through NAACP national conventions to know Daisy Bates, who was the president of the Arkansas conference of NAACP branches, and later became very famous because of her leadership in the Little Rock struggle. So, and she went to see the president of Philander Smith College to speak about me as well. Well, he blew hot and blew cold during the summertime. And finally, as school was approaching, I had to choose either whether to take a job in Canada or the Philander Smith job, which was the only job offered to me in anywhere in 98, in 48 plus 2 states. So that was the land of the free and the home of the braves.